Before I introduce my panelists, I want to give you a bit of a preview about our panel. As mentioned, I am Betal Himdassi. I'll be your moderator for this panel. If you know me, you might be assuming, what is she doing here? Because I have nothing to do with film, right? But I work in technology. And this panel that I'll be moderating will be talking about some of the critical infrastructure behind the creative ecosystem. And besides that, I agreed to do this panel because when I first was asked to do it, I was like, how does this relate to me? But when I learned more about the festival, it was about how do you make sure that people are telling their own stories in their own way. And democratizing access to technology and technology education is a thing that's very dear to me. So I decided this is something that relates with what I do, and I truly believe in this festival itself. So that's why I'm here, and I'll be moderating your panel today. So without further ado, I'd like to invite my amazing panelists. I would like to start with Aaron Sumeina, which is a photographer and a storyteller. Next up, Dagi Tedros from Red Fox, CTO of Red Fox, which is a data center solutions provider. And Nael Hailemaram, CEO of Chapa, a fintech company based in Ethiopia. Thank you so much, everyone, for agreeing to be part of this panel. Of course, as a creative on this panel, I'm going to start with you, Aaron. We've talked about disruption in technology, right? And specifically in the creative economy, where platforms like TikTok are rising. We're seeing AI tools that change text to images and art. And it's been quite disruptive, and it's been changing how stories are being told. So can you tell us some of the impact this disruption of technology has had in the creative economy?
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming. Thank you, Betty. Yeah, I think in this panel table, like everybody has been discussing with this AI and how it's challenging everybody, and we are all scared about it. I'm the main person who has been negative about this among my friends. All of them are experimenting with all of the new AI technologies and the changing of the applications and the updates and everything good. I think it really is a tool that it matters, and I want to get back to the whole point of this festival. At the same time, the industry in general, the creative industry, it starts from what story you want to tell. So it's all about what kind of story do you want to talk about, and what is that message do you want to get across. Then everything else is a medium. I use photography as my medium to tell my stories, and I think that's my expertise at, and I think photography helps me to reach to a wider audience that I can fully express the stories I want to tell, and image is a great tool for me. So I use photography, and others use this different tools like the films and look in the camera channel. I think the AI coming up, always keep on forgetting. This is how much I'm for. I'm not noticing this AI until what was the application? Mid-Journey. Yes. So Mid-Journey, it's the same thing. So there's this ideas you have in your mind, and you empower it. It doesn't create anything out of anywhere. It's what you give it. And we, amongst our friends, we've been discussing about these stories, childhood stories, taratoj that we've been growing up, and we always all of us have different version of these characters, but we can now imagine them using those tools that any of us can reimagine and create an image for those ideas, stories that we have. Amongst my friends, I know my friends now are using these tools, Mid-Journey now, to create a storyboards for clients. Now it used to take us like, a couple of weeks to come up with storyboards, do a sketch and everything. But now you have a tool where you give it a word and you adjust it and you do the storyboard. And when you have an idea that you want to execute, and you can try test it out before you produce it to see, okay, how come, what does this look like? So I think it's all about what you have in your mind, what story you want to tell, and what message you want to get across. And this tool combines all this data and that it have as a knowledge to give you of, this might be something that you're thinking about, how about this way? And you're like, okay, I want it this way and such. So I think it's a tool that we have to use, and as you started, it's all about democratizing the creative industry as well. So not just only the ones who have an access to the big cameras can produce a film. Anybody who have a phone can showcase their films as stories for an audience, So I think it's democratizing that storytelling power.
Thank you so much, Aaron, for that insight. And as you've mentioned, technology has grown so much. Like maybe 5 years, 10 years ago, using our phones to film something such as a film would have been unimaginable, right? And that also comes with the processing power, data, and storage. Nowadays, we have phones that have storage up to like 1 terabyte. But Dagi, I want you to tell us and to take us a bit into the cloud and storage and security side of things, and tell us a bit about how is that the backbone of the creative economy.
Hey everyone, thanks again for coming. That's a great segue, right, from Aaron. At first, like you mentioned, Betty, I was also quite shocked when, what am I doing in this panel, right? What is my involvement? But the more I researched about it, it's quite shocking on what I gathered on how filmmakers are extremely dependent on infrastructure, especially nowadays on the cloud. Softwares, broadcasting tools, security tools, storage tools are extremely expensive. So by decoupling those things, it allows these creative minds to focus on their bread and butter, which is filmmaking. And if you are enabling them with those tools, you have to be first available. What availability means, like you said, Betty, earlier, is in the past, for instance, Photoshop, CS versions that you're installing every now and then, Adobe, all that stuff, right? So you have to buy a laptop, a camera, an external hard drive, and all that good stuff. Now, with the Creative Cloud solutions and all of the streaming capabilities, like I mentioned earlier, we give the ability for them to decouple themselves from managing infrastructure. So now, okay, great, it is available. Let's say we provided a cloud that is locally based, that gives a competitive advantage with pricing, let's say, in a local currency, and the latency, because you don't have to pay for egresses, right? And putting your services in AWS or any other cloud. But how is it going to be sustainable, right? While you are streaming or broadcasting, am I going to get an interruption on a 600 megabyte upload? And do I have to start all over again? What about the storage? Am I going to get the sovereignty that I needed? Do I get additional managed services? So all these things can be enabled by relying on an infrastructure company or solutions provider that you can trust. And then the last piece or attribute you mentioned is the security piece of it, right? So we were actually talking about it outside. One of the things that used to worry me is losing my device. It's not just losing the content of it, but what if it falls into the wrong hands? So how do we do that, right? So automatically syncing it up to the cloud at least gives you that peace of mind on, okay, it is going to be available for me the next time I get that mobile device, but also the ability to automatically wipe or sanitize the media once the device is online by registering it into the cloud of your choice is also another advantage. But yeah, so availability, sustainability, and the security piece can be easily enabled so the creative minds can focus on their bread and butter, and that is what the cloud like Red Fox in Ethiopia would enable.
Hello? Okay. So you're basically saying you have solutions for creatives that are looking for cloud storage as Red Fox.
That is true.
Locally,
Yeah.
which is great. So which also brings me back to Nael. He's the CEO of Chapam. I'm sure most of you have heard of this platform. They've been doing a great job, starting with raising money for the Grand Renaissance Dam and building payment gateways for developers such as us. Our company is also running a campaign actually on their platform to raise some money for kids to code. So Nael, my question to you is, another piece of this creative ecosystem is, of course, monetization, right? You create content, you develop content, you need to sell it. As creatives based in Ethiopia, but also in the continent at large, how does platforms like Chapa support the creative ecosystem by, Dagi has mentioned that the cloud services, the security that they provide would help the creatives focus more on being creative, right? So how does Chapa aid in that?
Hi guys, so this is Niall. If you ask me what Chapa is based on your understanding, so Once Upon a Time app is here to democratize content creation and movie making, right? And Chapa is here to basically democratize finance. So as my background is data science, first I want to tell you more about the numbers that are on the ground. So do you guys know how many times YouTube is viewed in Ethiopia right now, like per day? So per day, YouTube is viewed 20 million times. Yeah, 20 million times. So this means there is a potential. And the population in Ethiopia is 120 million. And the internet growth is from 2020 to 21, it's by 3.5%. So imagine, like what would it be in 2025? So there is a big growth actually for you guys to really catch up on this market. And just to tell you like one more thing, so YouTube is basically the second most viewed website in Ethiopia. Then TikTok is number 8 with 8 million times per day view. So imagine like having this kind of numbers would really tell us that there must be a disruption in the content creation. And there's also like a big value for that as well. So what Chapa is doing, so I would like to tell you like there's one platform that was built by Nathan Damtao, the BitBlocky guy. So he built a platform called Tip Me. And after he built that, then he realized that there is no payment gateway in Ethiopia. So how can, for example, you do something here, how can a customer or your viewer from Cameroon or from Nigeria or from Pakistan can be able to pay you? For that, you need a payment gateway, and that's what Chapa basically offered. And we started our service 3 weeks ago, and we are getting so many tractions. Because, I mean, you do like, for example, one video, and or maybe you do one art, then how can you be able to sell that to a customer in Brazil or to a customer in the US, right? So for that, that's where you need the payment gateway. So you can actually get paid in dollars, in pound, in yuan. So that's what we facilitate. So there are 2 ways that I could see Chapa can actually help you guys. So one is, so the one I mentioned, the Nathaniel Damtao, the BitBlocky guy, he created the Tip Me feature. So that's actually on the layer up to Chapa. So it means for example, you created an account in Tip Me, then you can be able to create or generate a link and put that on the description of the TikTok or on the YouTube. So when people go to the Tip Me link, then they can be able to actually give you a tip. So this would definitely empower you guys. So this means someone from the US or someone from Europe, they can be able to give a tip on your videos, on TikTok, on YouTube. And we're gonna launch that in October. And we are looking for a partnership as well. I mean, saying you guys can be able to really be empowered. That's one way. And the second way is, so you basically created something, and maybe we could say like a video, and you actually want to get paid for that, right? And that's also where Chapa comes. So why not we have the Netflix version of Ethiopia, right? So for that still we need a payment gateway. That's basic. And that's what Chapa offers. So we could offer these two things, and we are happy to partner with organizations and also like personals for the tip me feature, because that's going to disrupt the economy. I assure you guys. Because here everyone wants to get tipped, right, on their videos, right? So that's what could help you as well. So we are happy to partner with any of the organizations here as well.
Thank you, Nail, about that. So talking about monetization, I want to come back to Aaron, because that's one of a very important issue, right? It's a hobby when, you do it, but once you start making money, it becomes a career. So it's very important for creatives to monetize on what they're working on. And we've talked about the cloud. We've talked about how people have been able to monetize. And before, actually, when we discussed, you mentioned about how the algorithm is actually helping people out, especially if you're creating content consistently, if you're producing good quality content, which you can do on your phone nowadays. The platforms are helping you do that. So how do you think some of the creatives can monetize through the platforms that are available to them now?
So I'll still answer this from my perspective and my storytelling background. So the challenging part for me when I was starting up was trying to be able to sustain myself on the passion projects that I have and constantly produce at the same time, make money for survival purposes. So, but nowadays that we have different platforms like TikTok, YouTube, and others, including Instagram and others, now trying to pay content creators for the platform because there is so much audience. As you imagine, there is like 20 million views a day, is a lot. That was almost, I don't know how much, ETV can reach that amount of, numbers even on a daily basis for their shows. Imagine that you can reach a countable amount of people online that you can reach 20 million. So let's imagine from that number, about 1% can view it, offered from our local society. So, and monetizing that, this, technologies, as you mentioned, they would allow us to develop more. That means we have to constantly produce as well. That's the role that's when it comes to us. That's our role in the platforms are there already. So we need to constantly produce stories, that's where the challenging part comes in. Now we have seen different short movies, with the smartphones that we have, and we can start off with, we have been seeing amazing content on TikTok that I don't know how, I wish I was producing that much on my skill, as a photographer that I grew up, and I wish I was constantly producing that much, because the amount of contents that I'm seeing on my phone and around me from Ethiopia only, and which is quite amazing. So that means this these creators, after a year or two, they will be producing amazing short films, movies in the next, because they have to provide more and new contents for their crowd. So that would allow that this small smartphones, platforms, and being able to be monetized, that they can sustain, constantly produce, would allow them to tell more stories, and at the same time quality stories from our country and also continent, I think, which we lack the most. Yeah.
Yes, Aaron. So you've mentioned about storytelling and producing content consistently, but that comes with its own challenges, right? Like having storage. Still, the concept of cloud is still very foreign in Ethiopia, right? A lot of us, whenever we have our phones filled, we transfer it into a hard drive, which might work or not work after a year or two. You know, we're still having those problems. So you talked about accessibility in terms of having a cloud that's localized, right? So can you tell us a bit more about the infrastructure that you're building at Red Fox and how it's going to benefit them? You've touched about, a bit on it earlier, but I want you to specifically talk about the cloud aspect of things and how creatives use that. Maybe some use case examples in other countries would also help.
Wonderful. A very good example would be the Adobe Creative Cloud Suite. So you are not only, of course, storage being the most important aspect of what this creative minds could use our cloud, which is going to be now locally available, right? So even before the cloud offerings, we are trying to create this seamless transition into the cloud. What I mean by that is, hey, you know, I am used to the traditional ways of storing my own application running on my servers, historical data that might not be supported by some of the, even like the codecs and the likes, right? So that lift and shift assistance into the cloud, the migration services into the cloud, the historical data retrieval, and all that solutions are the initial stages before we even introduce them to the cloud. Right after that, once they're in there, it's not just storage, like I said, like you can do live streaming during your shootout. You can also do broadcasting. And most importantly, you can do remote editing collaboratively. Because it's centrally located, you can pay for a perpetual license rather than individual licensees, which can give you cost advantages when you deal with individuals like Noel. And then that collaborative piece in broadcasting and then also remote editing is extremely important. The other piece of mind where, let's say you're just like that last movie we showed, you're in this rural area, immediately took a shot, but let's say you're passing through a very uncertain environment, or you have to use a boat or so. So it's always good to immediately upload it to the cloud that is in an edge that is remotely close to your area. So what we're doing is we're not just being available in a location like Addis Ababa, where, of course, is where our modular data center in our edge location and our first cloud is present. But we are also distributing our services in other metro areas within Ethiopia, and then also in the Eastern African region in 4 more countries, right? So this also gives them the capability to be mobile, ability to store, broadcast, stream, remotely collaborate, right? And then also the security piece that I mentioned. And then also one added services that we have is after migrating into also the cloud, the data sanitization piece for, let's say, you had a phone or a movie made by your smart device for, let's say, national services or, let's say, the NSA. Then we can help you sanitize that device properly in-house or show you the measures as well. So there are other managed services that we can provide, again, from the inception of it and walking you through the tools. Again, like Acrobat Creative Cloud, Adobe Creative Cloud, in running it in the cloud rather than in your services, which will save you from costing the cost that comes with purchasing the gears and the softwares and the licensees.
Thank you, Dagi. Nael, this would be my last question, and I'll come to the crowd so that you can ask your questions and we can have a bit more discussion about the topic. So one of the platforms, for example, I'm aware of is Patreon, right, where a lot of creatives create content and they're paid based upon a subscription or a tip model that you just talked about. You were telling me earlier about your payment link that you've set up that you're setting up, and you've also mentioned a bit about it, but especially the subscription model has benefited a lot of creatives across the world. How do you think a payment platform like Chapa can also assist in making sure that creatives are getting paid for the work they do? YouTube is being viewed, content is being created, but there's still a long way into monetization. And of course, Dagi has talked about how clouds are available locally, but still there are apps and stock images maybe sometimes that you need to pay for in order to do a really good, maybe let's say feature film or video on your phone. So how does Chapa facilitate that for the creative community?
Actually, very good question. So I think we need to think about the market first. So how many people are connected to the internet in Ethiopia in 2021? If you see the number, that's only 30 million people, 30 million. But there is a growth of 3.8%. Actually, 3.8% means from the population of Ethiopia, it's around 800,000 people. It's the population of Djibouti in a year. So in a year, there is a growth of a population of Djibouti in Ethiopia just in the past 1 year. So that's a lot. Now, when it comes to the people on using basically online payments, there need to be a culture change. So that's where we need to work on. Chapa cannot solve this alone, never. So this is, a group effort. So that's an ecosystem effort. So we need to make the people to be able to trust the online payment. So that's one thing. And Chapa is, of course, we are doing the integration with almost all the major banks in Ethiopia, including with Telebir. And we are trying to really make our system, our payment platform, of its infrastructure. We are trying to really maximize that for the entrepreneurs, for businesses, which also includes the content creators. And we are really trying to also come up with a different feature, as I mentioned, the tip me feature, and also like even more. So I think once there is a culture shift on the people of having freedom to actually pay online, then I think many, many things will come afterwards. And the good thing, the median age in Ethiopia, it's only 20. So, you can see the opportunity. It's a lot. So, and based on that, based on the culture shift, I think we need to really make sure that people get comfortable in paying online. And for that, we need to be able to have even many kind of features where people are really comfortable to pay online. And that's one thing what Chapa is doing. And for the payment link, actually that could be a use case for artists, for example. Because in Ethiopia, anyone cannot be able to create a website, right, from the scratch. So for those margin of the people, what we used is a payment link. On the dashboard, only in 3 clicks, they can be able to create a payment link for, it could be for their own art, for example. Even it could even be like for videos. But we are trying to really make the tech part very easy, so people get really comfortable in using the online payment. But for that, it's a team effort. Chapa cannot be able to really solve this alone. So we need to educate the people. We need to also have a wide range of use cases for people to use the online payment.
Thank you so much, Nael. When you talked about the cultural shift and change, one of the things I've noticed is one of the partners actually for this film fest is Zaliman, which is one of the biggest production companies. But basically embracing that, okay, we are heading into a future that people are able to create content on their phones. So we need to embrace that. We need to make sure that people, when they create here, they have the right resources. And the panelists here have mentioned from the cloud, from the monetization, and from a perspective of the storyteller. So I would like to come back to the crowd and see if you have any questions for the panelists. Yeah, we have, I think, about 14 minutes. I'll take questions from you, and then I'll give it back to the panelists. So I think I have one from the back. Yes, sorry, you're here. I thought you were there. So let's start. I'll come back to you. Thank you.
Let's see. Can you hear me? So I better stand. So my name is Enoch Mebratu. I'm a filmmaker. So what relates me to this panel is that I started in technology. My background was in computer science. So I started coding ages before. Like I started in assembly. Like Pascal, you understand, Betty. So when we started filming, I started filming in about 25 years ago. So the film that I did that took me to the Cannes Film Festival had, a quarter of a resolution. Didn't even have a quarter of a resolution that you guys are having this time. So it's nowadays the involvement of technology has increased. And now, like Aaron spoken earlier, I'm also, even though I'm 45 years old now, I'm currently using, daily. I'm a member in daily. I'm using Midjourney. So next week, I'm going to be producing my, comic book that was done in the AI. So what I'm trying to say here is that, I have one suggestion for the young people, because you are born with smartphones, or because you have gotten them. Everyone is taking them for granted, because when I see the opportunities, the people who are young, they just ignore the opportunities. So every time when some technology comes in, we are always the last person to use that. For instance, the metaverse is coming. Nobody is speaking about it. The blockchain is here. I know it's been forbidden by the government, but it's going to change. So we have to be early adopters in order to be benefit from because nowadays we are using YouTube, we are using TikTok or something, but we are not benefiting out of it because we are joining when it's already saturated. So I think it would be a good idea for all of us to join together and have something in Africa, based in Africa, which is authentic. That because when we are doing currently AI, when you do, for instance, the images for white people, you get perfect images because the big data is there. But when you try to do something, for instance, from Ethiopia, you don't get a good result because we are not doing much. So when there are a lot of people involved in AI these days, if you are joining Midjourney, if you're joining other, for instance, Stable Diffusion, that's free. You can join that. So when we have a lot of data for the AI to feed, we can guide the AI. Otherwise, it's going to have years back when we try to search something, for instance, a white burglar or something. Do you mean a black burglar? It says like that because that's how was Google trained. So AI is going to also go that way. So you have to be early adopters. You have to be involved in AI. Otherwise, our narrative is going to change because we are always blaming Hollywood for setting a narrative in the film industry. So as a filmmaker, after doing 20 or more years in film, I couldn't change that narrative. So AI is going to go that way. So now it's in early stage. Metaverse is in the early stage, so we have to be early adopters to do that. So the question that's my suggestion. The question that I have for you guys is, nowadays technology is now at the heart of filmmaking. So you need to have some work on that. And the question that I have for Chapa is, are you planning to integrate your system to NFTs and to the blockchain system? Because whether you like it or not, it's going to get there. So that's the question I have for you. Thank you for taking it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think we should answer it one by one, right? Or should we take the questions? Let's go ahead with you.
Okay, thank you. I'm Tadela Mullah from Bartan University. My question is for the person that comes from Japa. How Japa creates a connection with international platforms that creates an opportunity of payment system, because we know that most of content creators post their works on platforms that pays with foreign currency. So how did you create the connection with platforms that offer financing or payment system? This is my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone? SG, at the back.
Again, sorry, the question is for Chapa. So when I was signing up, one of the issues I was having was that it requires VAT registration and TIN number and license and all that. So if I am a TikToker and I decide to use your platform, one of the problem is I can't go to our local community or local kabale and say that I'm a TikToker, I need a TIN number or VAT number. They're going to not even give me that opportunity, because even if they give me an opportunity, they're going to ask me for a PLC, and as a TikToker, opening a PLC sounds ridiculous enough because you don't generate that much money to be double taxed. So one of the question I have is, would Chapa be creating influence the government to let us, these TikTokers and YouTube creators and so on, that they can use this payment method without being forced to have a PLC? At least until we have reached the Zaliman level, at least. The second question is that would you be able to have a dialogue discussion with the government in order for them to understand that most payments or most YouTubers in Ethiopia are using other countries' location, geolocation, in order to get them payment? And I am sure no YouTuber and no TikToker have no issue with being batted or taxed for the work they're doing. But in order to get taxed, the government have to create partnership with YouTube. And that issue has been stated before, but no actual any tangible thing has resulted. So if there is any issue, any kind of change you plan to do in the future, we would like to know that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's take one more question and then. Yage? Jella? I think majority of the questions are directed towards Chapa, because still monetization is a huge issue still in the creative industry. So I'll let Nael answer some of the questions and we'll finish this panel if you don't have any more questions.
Yeah, I never thought all the questions will be directed to me. Okay. So I think, I'm going to start from the first one. We are ready to integrate with any payment method, any. Also like with cryptos. Actually, my background, my first job, when I was abroad, I was a Bitcoin broker. So I know what you mean. I mean, there's a big volume there, big volume. But we need to be adhered to the regulation in Ethiopia, because basically we are, by the National Bank of Ethiopia. Yeah, so we cannot be able to really go outside the line, because we are really audited by them. That's why. But we are ready anytime. As soon as the government lifts this up, we are ready to integrate. And for us, it took us based on the experience that we have, it took us only like even less than 30 minutes. And to actually do the integration with Chapa, it's only 6 lines of code. So a professional coder can do the integration, the API integration is 30 minutes. So in 30 minutes integration, you guys can be able to receive a payment from anywhere in the world. And the second question about the international payment methods, right? Yeah, so since we get the license from the National Bank of Ethiopia, we can be able to process international payments with partners. So for now, Visa, MasterCard, PayPal, Amex, Discover, PayPal are part of actually our international payment methods. So your so the person that actually likes to tip you or to actually like pay you the money can be able to use these international payment methods for now. But soon we're gonna add WeChat, Alipay, even for the Chinese part of it. So, I mean, we are really trying to connect Ethiopia to the global economy. So you guys can really be empowered. So, you know, as the creative directors, you guys don't have to even think about how to actually get paid. You guys need to only focus on creating contents, right? So for the payment part, we are here. Chapa is here to solve that. And for the third question, yeah, I mean, that's the regulation. We cannot change that. So you need to be able to have a registered business in Ethiopia to be able to use Chapa. And of course, we are lobbying the government through the Startup Act to waive some of the things. At least not to have a registered office rent, at least to actually like waive that. So you guys can be able to really be able to accept payments only by 30 minutes registration, but still that's on the way, and Chapa cannot do anything here, basically. That's part of the regulation from the government. So you need to really be able to have all those legal documents, legal incorporation documents. So yeah, those are the answers for this question.
Thank you, Nail. A lot of talk about government and regulations, I believe, right? So I think the creative community needs a champion to go back to the government and talk about these issues. But before we finalize, we have 2 minutes. I would like to give my panelists a chance to say some last words. And Aaron, I'll start with you. What is some of your advice to the creative community? I'm sure a majority of the people here are creating content or trying to. So what's your advice?
Okay, I think Henok has made a clear point in so many ways that how much power that we have on our phones, that in this time and age, in this digital era, you know, we have seen starting from the news and like, you know, the most boring part, news, starting from news that all the way to the creative side within seconds, that you have seen TikTokers bloom in amazing qualities and brands across as well. So I think we have an amazing power with our phones to start off. You have no excuses to start off any ideas to execute them. And there are companies that you can partner up with to make the money out of it, to, you know, as an influencer or you know, making contents as well constantly. So this will come after you create so many of those, you know, stories, or not just stories, of any ideas that you have to reality by any of the things that you have in your hand. So start off with that, and that's the main thing, I think, is constantly producing.
Yeah, so I believe your name is Henok. So Henok, the metaverse is not coming. The metaverse is here. So there are a lot of creative minds, a lot of NFT designers that we know that are using cryptocurrency to transact, store their designs that are extremely massive in size, protect them, and also access them from remotely from, you know, anywhere in the world. So just to briefly summarize, Red Fox is basically going to provide that by giving them ease of access for the solutions, broadcasting and editing capabilities, and that collaboration that they can have, that perpetual licensability, and having also that peace of mind, which is entirely going to give you or decouple worrying about the infrastructure or the gadgets and focus on your bread and butter, right? And then also the likes of these fintech companies are also collaborating with us in using our cloud as well, which is also going to help them pay in local currency. It's not just you, it's them as well that are going to in the future use our services. So to give you that latency, resiliency, Betty said it earlier, that being available is not enough. You have to be sustainable, and then most importantly, secure. So yeah, that's basically it.
So tip me feature will basically disrupt the TikTok and YouTube, and I assure you that. So by the next year, I think we're gonna have, I don't know, like another panel only for the tip me feature. So, but make sure to really have quality contents. So that's what I can say. So stay awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much for all of our panelists. Thank you, Hanok, for that insight. I really don't want to get into the AI topic right now because it's a big topic, but I just want to end this panel by saying that, I really do believe when there's a will, there's a way. Right? So Aaron has also mentioned it. You need to create content consistently. I think we take things for granted, but so as young people in Ethiopia, as people that are creating content to the world, I think it's very important to be consistent and, to go through some of the challenges, see what there is at the end of the tunnel. So I encourage all of you to do what you're doing right now, keep what you're doing, and thank you for the organizers for inviting us here and talking about the infrastructure, the ecosystem, and what the role of technology is behind the creative ecosystem. Thank you so much and have a great day.